Okay, it's another episode of Rise Up with Mark Mixon. Hello, Adam.
Hello, Mark.
So we're live streaming a thing here. It's our reaction commentary video for the second presidential debate. We did do one for the first debate, but we didn't post it. We did not live stream it. So this will be our first live stream of this thing. Second attempt at sort of a presidential debate commentary. Any predictions?
Ooh, I predict Kamala Harris will not act like an 81-year-old man.
Yeah, I think she will do far better than either of the last two did. I got to say, I'm not in favor of either of them. I don't want either of these clowns as president, but I am looking forward to this debate more. Like the last time, I knew it was going to be a fucking ordeal. I knew it was just, and it was awful.
Yeah, I think we were both surprised that it was worse than we expected, though, considering that we expected bad.
Expected nothing but a train wreck, and it was just
two just rambling old men on stage for 3 hours. It was
the best part, I think. Either the best part was Biden like losing where he was early on, and then wrapping it up with "we beat Medicare." But actually, I think the actual best part was the 10 minutes they spent arguing about each other's golf handicap. So
that was something.
It was really something. Okay, so it looks like on the news ticker here, the CNN ticker, got just about 2 minutes until the candidates take the stage.
Yeah.
And I expect the debate to end before this live stream does, because I expect us to be pausing this theoretically at times to comment on the things they said, rather than talking over them. I guess I don't care about talking over them so much.
Yeah, we'll talk over them a little bit.
But there will be times, I think, when I'm going to want to talk and say a thing and not miss the future. Okay, so they're taking the stage.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah,
I'll turn the volume up here.
Let's hear what they have to say. What's going on?
So let's get started.
Let us get started, for sure.
Repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks,
did you say President Trump were elected 4 years ago?
Than you were 4 years ago. When it comes to the economy,
I think so.
Americans are better off than they were.
I'm already confused.
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing. And the cost of housing is
but there's not a shortage at all.
We know that young families need support.
It is too expensive, but there's no shortage.
To raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses.
She doesn't have to lay out all of her agenda right at the top.
Economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion.
Wasn't the question something about, are we better off than we were 4 years ago?
I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year, because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us
She
back
should be
for all
spending
that
more
we've
time
done for the
talking about
world.
what she's going to do and
the
only
tariff
replying
will be
to what he
substantial in
says,
some cases. I took in billions
not
and billions of dollars, as
saying
you know,
what
from
he,
China.
this is what
In
he's going to
fact, they
do.
never
Let
took
him
the
talk.
tariff off because it
and
was so
respond to
much
it.
money they can't. They would
Yeah, it's
totally
part of the
destroy
standard
everything that they've
Democrat
set out to
practice
do.
and
They're
policy right
taking
now
in
of making
millions
sure
of
it's
dollars from
focused
China
on
and other
Trump bad.
places. They've left the
Right? She
tariffs
has
on.
to
When I had it, I had tariffs,
focus
and yet I
on
had
Trump
no
is going to give
inflation.
you a 20%
Look,
tax.
we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were
I
at
could put a
21%,
15-minute
but that's
video
being
together of
generous
him
because
saying,
many
ever
things are
seen
50,
before.
60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring
There is
into
no
our
middle
country
class.
from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane
It's not been a
asylums.
tragedy
And
for
they're
every
coming in
class.
and
The
they're
billionaire
taking
class is fucking raking
jobs
it
that
in.
are occupied right
There
now
are no
by
mental
African
institutions.
Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be
It's called
affected
jails or
very
the
soon.
streets.
And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in
Oh, I didn't know this.
violently. These are the people that she and
I hadn't
Biden
realized there were
led
people that
into our
were
country,
occupying
and they're
spaces in
destroying
America
our
with
country.
guns and
They're dangerous. They're at
fomenting
the
a war.
highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what
Loosen up.
Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies,
On both sides.
grievances,
On
and
both
name
sides for
calling.
sure.
What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very
You
strongly.
don't need to point
that
out
the American people
something that
want
maybe
a
he'll do. You can
president
just
who
point out that he's
understands
a
the
feckless
importance
leader that
of
doesn't
bringing
understand how
us
government
together,
works.
knowing
So
we
how's
have
he
so
going to
much
get
more
anything
in
done?
common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died. Has there been anything like it? We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got
Ventilators
masks, we did
were a
things that
high
nobody
reason
thought
why people
possible.
died.
And people give me credit for rebuilding
Destroy
the
your lungs.
military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
How?
So
How did you create
Donald
it?
Trump has no
That
plan
would be
for
my
you.
response.
And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. What I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think
I
this
went
plan
to
is
the
a
Wharton
brilliant
School
plan.
of
It's a great
Finance.
plan. It's a plan that's going to
That's
bring
why
up
she
our-
brought
our
it up,
worth,
right?
our
Like trying
value
to
as a
say that
country. It's
Donald
gonna
Trump
make
school
people
still
wanna
agrees
be
with
able
me.
to go
but-
and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences.
It's acceptable
like
for a
one
vice president to
spot
have
run,
some plans
4
that mirror the
sentences that it
administration
just,
she was
"Oh,
just
we'll
in. If
try to
Biden
lower
died at any
taxes."
point, she
She
would have
doesn't
been
have a plan.
president for
Take
the
a look
last
at her
4
plan.
years.
She doesn't have a plan.
So when
Mr.
people
President,
say,
I do wanna
"Oh,
drill
she
down on
wasn't
something
elected,"
you
she
both
was
brought up.
elected.
The
If
Vice
we
President
believe
brought
the
up,
vice
your
president
tariffs, you
was supposed to take
responded,
over,
and let's
something
drill
happens
down
to
on
the
this
president.
because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal
You're voting
calls
for 2
tariffs, as you
presidents at a
pointed out here,
time.
on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of
China.
the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely
I buy
done
eggs
with
and
what they've
bacon
done.
every week.
They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great.
When you're not
that
spending
their
money on
economy was
trash, you can
terrible.
spend money
Vice
on the
President
good
Harris,
stuff.
I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies.
It's the
focusing on
second
investing
time
in
she's
American-based
spun away
technology
from
so
answering
that
the
we
question.
win the
that she
race on AI, on quantum
expressly
computing.
ignored the
Focusing
question.
on what we need to do
Question
to
was,
support America's workforce.
the Biden
so
administration
that we
did
don't
keep
end up
many of
having
Trump's
on the
tariffs
short end
in
of the
place.
stick
What do you
in
have to
terms
say
of
about that?
workers' rights.
She's got nothing to say
But
about
what
the
Donald
tariffs.
Trump did, let's talk
It's some
about this,
demonization of
COVID,
China, though.
is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy.
We bought our chips from
Everything
Taiwan.
that she believed 3 years ago and 4
Isn't
years
that a
ago
duck?
is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in
Ridiculous.
economics.
Like a decent amount of people in
He
this
taught
country
her
don't know
well,
what that means
But
anymore.
when you look at what
No.
she's done to our country,
No,
and
it's
when
just
you
a
look at these millions and millions of
thing
people that are
conservatives
pouring into
say.
our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think
None
it's a
of
lot
the
higher
Democrats
than
are
the 21.
Marxists.
That's bigger than New York
No,
State,
sadly.
Oregon, and just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals.
Even
Many
Bernie.
of these people coming in are criminals.
Yeah, not
And
even
that's
fucking
bad
close.
for our economy too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump. Thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were
In
able
conclusion,
to kill Roe v. Wade.
these people hate
Last year,
America.
You said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been
He wants to
trying
kill
get Roe
babies.
v.
That's not
Wade
okay with me.
into the states. And through
Well, unless they're
the
Palestinian babies, then that's okay
genius
with
me.
them.
Right,
and
right.
heart and
Then we're all in
strength
agreement.
of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important.
50
We were
years
able to
ago, the
get it,
president
and now
believed in what I
states are
believe.
voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart.
Like when I was a
for
child,
52
I believe in
years.
what Warren G.
Every
Harding
legal
said.
scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal.
Keep your name out of
Kansas,
your
the
keep
vote
our
was
name out of your
somewhat
mouth.
Liberal,
I
much
can't
more
talk.
liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
The
Well, as I
most
said, we're
matter-of-fact
here
way
live,
to ever
and
answer
that's
that
not
question.
actually a surprising fact.
There's
Let's
no
understand how we
state where
got
that's
here.
allowed. Next
Donald
question.
Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly
Oh God!
as he
Somebody should have
intended.
told her to drink
now in
some
over
water and get a
20
lozenge,
states,
lozenge
there are
before she
Trump
started this.
abortion bans, which make it
I'm
criminal
gonna do the same.
for a doctor or nurse
Yes,
to
I've had
provide
to be
health
drinking a
care.
fair
In
bit
one
here.
state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor
Let's
of
not.
a crime of violation to their body does not have the
Yep.
right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon
True.
their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12
Got a
or
little too
13-year-old
specific.
survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that.
Yeah.
And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
If he's not going to own up to 2025, then she has to start talking about what those things are and how everyone involved in the project was from his former administration and is still close allies with him today.
And
Just
it's about
talk
putting
about it
people in
actually.
his administration.
And it may take a little time.
If
but
he's
for
not going to
52
take ownership,
years,
then
this
explain it
issue
better.
Has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the
That
House.
is true. And at
She's not gonna
least
get the
to
vote.
her benefit, this
But
time she
won't
said,
even come close to it. So
if
it's just
Congress
like-
passes
you
a
know what it
law, I'll
reminds me
sign
of
it.
when they said they're
Previously,
gonna
she's
get
just said
student
that
loans,
she's going to
terminated,
codify Roe v.
and
Wade,
it ended
which
up being a total
blatant
catastrophe.
lie because she can't get it
Student
done.
loans, and then her,
And all she has to
I think
say is we'll
probably her
be a
boss,
stopgap from
if you call
these
him a
things
boss, he
going
spends all his
further.
time on the beach.
We,
But
you
look,
know, we'll,
her
and
boss
in the
went out
future, hopefully
and
we'll
said,
be
"We'll
able
do
to
it
do
again.
something
We'll
like
do it
this.
a
But don't
different
act like
way."
you're
And it
going to be
went
the
out,
one who
got
gets to do
rejected
it.
again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with JD. In all fairness, JD, and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to
Majority of the
abortion?
people
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade.
in some
And
states.
as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments.
Yep.
What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working one or two jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is,
I'd
have
like
to
to
travel
see.
to another state
I mean, it was nice
to
that
get
the
on a plane sitting
moderator
next to strangers,
just called out
to
and
go and
fact
get the
checked him.
health care
But
she
I'd love to see,
needs.
like, if Harris had said,
Barely can afford
Donald,
to do it, and
why
what
are you
putting
lying
her
about
through
people getting
is
executing babies?
unconscionable.
Or
Right.
And the
do you
people of
really
America
believe that?
have
Are you
not, the
so
majority of Americans
Right.
like just
believe in a woman's
ask
right
why
to make
he's lying,
decisions
or
about
if
her own
he's
body.
really
And that is why
that deluded?
every
Like, and
state
just
where
ask
this
him
issue has been on the
straight
ballot
up,
in red
right?
and blue states both.
Attack.
The people
Don't
of
just
America have voted
spew
for
the
freedom.
talking points you've been
Vice
practicing
President,
all
thank
Excuse
week.
me, I have to respond. Another lie.
Month,
It's another
whatever.
lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which
See,
is
he's willing to
fertilization.
willing
The
to say that
IVF,
she's lying.
I have been a leader. In fact,
Yeah, and he's the best
when
at
they got a
calling
very
someone else a
negative
liar
decision
while he
on
lies.
IVF from the
Yes, he
Alabama
is.
courts, I
He's the
saw
best
the people
at
of
it.
Alabama and the legislature 2 days
And
later
hardly anybody
voted
ever
it
just
in.
calls him a
I've
liar
been
out
a
loud.
leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her
Why-
that question?
Why don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question? Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer the
Wade,
question. Would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia.
Probably
The
after
governor
birth.
of
Hey, you don't
Virginia
want this
said, "We put
baby?
the
We don't
baby
need it
aside,
either."
And then we determine what we want to do with the baby."
President Trump, thank you.
We're
Abortion
going to turn
or
now
no
to immigration
adoption.
and border
Who needs that?
security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root
Trump was like,
causes of
where do we get the
migration from
babies
Central
to
America.
drink their
We
blood
know
and
that
stay
illegal
young? I
border
don't.
crossings
Of
reached
course.
a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the traffic. United States Congress, including some of the most
Oh.
conservative members of the United States Senate, came
I
up with a
jumped.
border security
Yeah.
bill, which I supported.
This is
And
pre-recorded.
that
This
bill
isn't
would
live.
have
No.
put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened
What's
to
up
that
with
bill?
Trump's eyes? I've always
Donald Trump
wondered
got
this.
on the phone,
Is it that he
called
spends a
up
lot of
some
time in a
folks in
tanning
Congress
bed
and
with
said,
those little
"Kill the bill."
goggles
And you know
on, or is it
why?
just that he's got huge
Because
ass
he'd
bags that
prefer to
catch the
run on
light?
a problem instead of
I think it's
fixing
huge ass
a
bags.
problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country
Especially when
actually
he tips
need
his
a
face
leader
down.
who engages in solutions, who actually addresses
Guy gets like
the
3 hours of
problems
sleep a
at
night,
hand.
so
But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run
clearly
on a
sleeping
problem
and staying away
instead of fixing
from
a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk
ultra
about
processed
immigration a
foods
lot
will make
tonight,
you live
even when
forever
it's not the subject that is being raised.
or not live.
And I'm
stay
going to
away.
actually do something
Just
really unusual,
look at
and
him.
I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
Ooh,
And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk
calling out
about
the MAGA.
is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
And your needs.
And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I
Slow
pledge to
down,
you that I
Kamala.
will.
Vice
I
President
know,
Harris,
right?
thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would
So
like to respond.
let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in
People
and
don't
paying
go to
them to
rallies.
be there,
Yeah, that's not true.
and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's
Jesus
because
Christ,
people
this
want
guy.
to take.
It's so easy to bait this
Our
guy.
country is being lost. We're a failing nation, and it happened.
That's
3.5
why if I were her,
years
I
ago,
would go take a Hillary
and
playbook and call him a
what's
puppet.
going on here, you're going to end up in World
Not a
War
puppet,
III,
you're a
just to
puppet,
go into
puppet.
another subject.
Puppet,
What
puppet,
they have
puppet
done to
people.
our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it.
Towns can't
In
talk.
Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in.
What?
They're eating the cats. They're eating
Apparently,
the pets
apparently
of the
immigrants are eating
people
pets
that
in
live
Ohio.
there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple
I
phrase.
said eating
Make
dogs
America
and cats.
great
They could
again.
be strays. Oh no, what
Now
happened?
we got to freeze.
I know, I see that. See what happened here. I'm gonna have to switch to.
My
Let me-
word. Well, this is a more interesting debate than the last one, but and Trump clearly feels more pressure this time. I mean, Kamala does not seem enormously comfortable. She does seem she's easing into it now. Like I'm feeling she's a little less nervous, and Trump is definitely feeling pressure. He's feeling the need to respond far more forcefully than he did with Biden. But I would be fascinated. Oh, now you're tech shooting it. Got it. We didn't lose.
I'm
this
working.
thing. Yeah.
Yep.
I would be fascinated to get to be sort of a behind the scenes and see what happens in Harris's debate prep. I don't think Trump does debate prep. Essentially, I bet he's just pretty good at the talking shit.
Yep.
Formally worked with President Bush.
God knows
Mitt
he's good
Romney,
at just
and John McCain,
spilling shit out of his
including
mouth.
the endorsement
Yeah.
for Vice President Dick Cheney and Congressmember.
And not caring if you're right or telling the truth makes it a lot
really
easier in a lot of ways.
the inside
Right.
track on who the former president is if he didn't make it clear
Sorry about
already.
that,
Just
those
ask
who were
people who
watching,
have
which
worked
looks
with
like
him.
none now.
His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt
Well, they're
for the
probably all
Constitution of
watching.
the United States. His former national
watching
security
live.
advisor has said
We've
he
had a
is
few people
dangerous and
sorting it out.
unfit. His former secretary of defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term.
No.
And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you. Because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person.
Oh,
I
yeah?
fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody
So
does
when there's
bad
a ton of
job,
incompetence
I
and
fire
things are
him.
not being handled right,
take
you
a guy
fire
like
people?
Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a
What's
book.
that say
Because
about
with
the
me, they
Trump
can write books. With
administration?
nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any
Like he reaches his
president,
hand out
sitting
and
president
swats them in the
history
face
by
and
far.
pinches their head.
Let me continue on immigration.
Touches
It was
your
what you
head.
wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation
Crush.
proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them.
Yeah.
They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world.
This country's
crime
about the
is down
natives.
all over the world, except here. Crime here is up and
Not
through
people
the
that come
roof.
from other
Despite
places.
their fraudulent statements that they
Right.
made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you
Oh
know, the
my
FBI
God.
says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris, I'll
FBI
give you the-
they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime.
Why would they
It was
not?
a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond. Vice
That's
President.
not them.
Well, I
That's the
think this is
economy.
so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear.
Yeah, they can point all
where
they
each
want that
person
he's been
stands
charged a
on
lot,
the
but
issue
he's also
of
just
what is
been found
important
guilty a lot
about
too,
respect
which
for the rule of law and respect
harder
for
to
law
do that.
enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding
I think
federal
it's an
law enforcement,
interesting
45,000
tactic because
agents. Get this, on the day after he was
there's
arraigned
no
on
one
34
who's voting
felony
for
counts.
Kamala who
So
doesn't
let's talk
already
about what
think
is
that
important in
Trump
this
is
race.
a
It is
criminal,
important that we
and
move forward, that
and
we
there's
turn
no
the
one who votes
page
Trump
on this
who doesn't
same
think
old
that that's
tired
been
rhetoric and
lawfare,
address
that it's
the
some
needs of the
fake
American
shit.
people,
Like,
address what we need to do
you're
about
not
the housing
convincing
shortage, which I
anyone.
have
You're
a plan
just
for,
playing
address
into
what we
the
must do to
narrative.
support our
I'm
small
not sure what the
businesses,
whole point
address bringing
of
down
these
the price of
attacks are.
groceries.
right.
But
You're
frankly,
telling
the American
jokes to the
people are
audience you've already
exhausted
formed.
with
Like
this
they're
same
already
old
on
tired
your
playbook.
side.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most
Except
of
for
them.
your
But those are
30-some
cases,
different
it's called weaponization.
court
Never happened in
defeats
this
with
country.
the
They
election being
weaponized
overturned.
the Justice Department. Every one of those
Oh, wait.
cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta
true.
and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the
Guilty?
toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're
President Trump.
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled
Do you think a
that the
candidate would do
former
worse if they
president would
didn't use their
essentially
hands?
be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again.
Yeah, I think so.
Understand, this is someone who has openly
Not a lot of
said
people are
he would
talkers with their
terminate,
hands.
I'm
It's like
quoting,
you're
terminate
just
the
directing my
Constitution
attention
of the United
away
States,
from
that
listening
he
to you
would
completely.
weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to
You like
stop
that?
him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
We got to
This is the
continue
one
here.
that weaponized, not me.
Why did they open
She
his mic?
weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat
took
to
a bullet
democracy.
to the head.
They're the threat to democracy. With the
President
I was
fake
waiting for him to say that.
Russia
We
investigation
do have a lot to
that
get.
went nowhere.
I probably
Lindsay.
took a bullet to
Vice
the
President
head.
Harris, in your last run
Probably.
for president,
I'm
you
not-
said you wanted to ban fracking. Now
Might not
you
have been a
don't.
bullet.
You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So
It's called
my values
getting
have
into
not
office
changed,
and
I'm gonna
finding out what this
discussed every
country needs to
one of
keep
the, at
doing in
least
order
every
to
point that you've made.
maintain
but in
its
particular, let's talk about
monopolies around the
fracking 'cause we're
world,
here in
and I
Pennsylvania.
can't
I made that very
affect
clear
that.
in 2020.
Next
I
question.
will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for
An unfortunate place to freeze.
energy, so we
Huh.
reduce our reliance on foreign oil.
At least, you know,
We
on her
have
face there.
had the largest
Both
increase
had
in
interesting faces. but
domestic
hers
oil
Right
was-
when you said
production
that,
in
our thing
history
kind of like lost.
because of an approach that recognizes
I'm like,
that
freeze.
we cannot
Wow, did you see the
over-rely on
freeze before
foreign
me?
oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager.
I had real
The
adult
values
parents.
I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to
Lost
work
$2
with the
billion.
private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes,
When
increase
Trump
by 3 million
smiles like
homes by the end
that,
of
he
my
looks
first
like
term.
one of the
My work
Muppets
that is
up on
related
the
to
balcony.
having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather.
More and more ape
And
looking.
my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the
Yeah, the
importance
big smile,
of
sort of
standing
bullfrog.
up for
I
those who
don't
are
know.
most vulnerable.
Yeah.
My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare.
He smiles and then
is
he
based on
pushes his lips
longstanding
together
work
like
that I
he's
have
going to
done,
kiss somebody.
protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down.
See, but
it's
I
in
hear
lifting people
Democrats
up.
say that we
I
need someone
intend
who
to be
believes in
that
values and
president.
lifting people up. And I
President
say,
Trump
yeah,
will
I
first of all,
agree,
wasn't
but
given
that's not going to be a
$400 million.
Democrat
I wish I
either.
was. My
It's like
father was a
neither of
Brooklyn
these
builder,
fucking
Brooklyn,
clowns
Queens. I had a
believe in
great
lifting
father, and I
people up.
learned a lot from him,
Neither
but I
of
was
these
given a
jokers
fraction of that, a
want to
tiny
fight for
fraction,
working
and I
people.
built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are.
She's not here
So we
to
don't have to talk
solidify
about
anything
that.
she believes in.
Fracking,
She's
she's
here
been against it
to
for
make
12
us
years.
realize what a nightmare he is.
Defund the police. She's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly.
Can we
very
talk about their
horribly,
American
and
flag
everybody's
pins? I don't know
laughing at
why I
it,
want
okay?
to,
They're all
but I'm
laughing
always
at it. She
fascinated
gave
about
up
the pins.
At least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like she was big on defund
She
the
has a little
police.
bit more of
In
a flaccid
Minnesota, she
flag.
went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Oh,
She went out. She went out in Minnesota and wanted
I mean,
to
that
let
was a good
criminals
that was a
killed
good shout
people,
back
that
to her
burned down Minneapolis. She went
for
out
calling
and raised
out
money to get them
Palestinian
out of
protesters.
jail.
I'm
She
talking
did
now.
things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender
That was
operations on
that was
illegal
a known.
aliens that are
That
in
was
prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to
I'm gonna say
confiscate your
point
guns,
Trump.
and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania.
other than him really
If
being
she won the
perceived as a
election,
misogynist
fracking
prick
in
right there. But yeah, I
Pennsylvania
mean, people
will
are going to take
end
it that
on
way.
day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. They
I
took,
suppose
when
if
they
you'd
took
not
over,
seen her
they
speech
got
where
rid of
she
it, started getting
No.
rid of
shut
it,
down
and
people
the
who
prices
were
were going up
asking her
the
to, if
roof.
they're gonna
They immediately
she's gonna
let
defend
these guys
Palestinian
go
people,
to where
and
they
she
were.
shuts them down at the
I would have
DNC
been
with I'm
5
talking here.
times, 4 times, 5 times
Yeah.
higher.
Most people
because you're
didn't.
talking about 3.5 years ago. They got
Especially
it up
people that
to
support her.
where I was because they had no choice because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election,
He's
they'll
yelling
go
a
back
lot.
to destroying our country.
Yeah,
and
no, he's
oil will
definitely
be
feeling
dead,
the pressure
fossil
in a
fuel
way
will
that
be
he
dead. We'll go
didn't
back
with
to
Biden, right?
windmills,
Like
and we'll go
Biden,
back
he was
to
a gentle
solar,
Trump.
where they
Yeah,
need
he
a whole
almost,
desert
it
to
seems like
get
he
some
felt
energy
bad for
to come out.
Biden.
You ever see a
This
solar
time,
plant? By the
he's
way, I'm a
feeling
big
the
fan of
pressure.
solar.
Like,
Yeah.
But they take
It's like, I can't beat up on this half dead human in front of me.
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
He
we
does have a
to
heart.
get to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in
Well,
just
yeah,
56
you know,
days.
and
And
there's
I want
other
to
old
talk about
white
the
men who
peaceful
are
transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role
He didn't
of
say
the
what color
president
his heart is.
in a
but
moment
it
of
does have one.
crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
How about
said
instead of always
anything that
asking him this
isn't
stupid
covered
question,
peacefully and patriotically. I
how
said
about
during
just
my
talking
speech,
about
not
how he
later on.
spent a
Peacefully
month and
and
a half talking
patriotically.
about how the
And
election was
nobody on the
stolen
other side was
and
killed.
rallying a bunch of
Ashley
people
Babbitt was
to
shot by
the
an
or near the
out-of-control
White House
police
and near the
officer
Capitol
that should have
for that
never,
reason.
ever shot her.
You
It's
know,
a disgrace. But we
there's
didn't
a
do
lot of
this
lead
group
up
of
you could talk
people
about
that have
instead
been
of just
treated
asking
so
him this
badly.
specific
I asked,
end question.
What about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the
Voter
beginning,
czar?
"Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet."
Yeah,
That's
people on the
because
right call
she
her the
knows what a
voter,
bad
the
job
borders
they've done.
are.
What about
Borders
those
are.
people?
She was put in
when are
charge
they
of
going
the
to be
border
prosecuted? When are these
by
people
the
from
by
countries
Biden's
all
team.
over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are
you.
those?
Yeah.
When are those people going to be prosecuted?
It's like
When are
a
the people
Michael
that burned
Bay,
down Minneapolis
Jerry
gonna be
Bruckheimer film
prosecuted?
down on the
Or
border
in
right now.
Seattle?
It's just
They
all
went
these
into Seattle.
criminals
They took over a big percentage of the city of
and
Seattle.
warmongers
When
that
are
are
those people
on
going
the
to be
border.
prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You
you.
might ask her that
You
question.
were the president. You
Austin
were watching
and
it
Dallas
unfold
was
on
still
television.
burning.
It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it.
I've really
And
ginned
again,
these
it
people
wasn't
up.
done by me. It was done by
Do
others.
something about
I
this.
said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington
Tape.
did their jobs.
What year is
I
this?
wasn't responsible for security. Nancy
There's a
Pelosi
tape.
was responsible.
I saw
she
a
didn't do
tape.
her job.
The
They wanna
question
get
was
rid
about
of
you
it.
as president, not about
You don't
former
need
Speaker
hard copies
Pelosi,
of
but I do
things
want
anymore.
Vice President Harris to respond here.
I don't need to eat this tape.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day,
I'm gonna go check to
the
see something
president
quick.
of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place
Let's not go back to the future.
in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy.
This man will
because you
run
don't
until
want
he's
the
99
outcome.
years old if
And
he
be
can.
clear
Right,
on
yeah,
that
no.
point.
If he loses,
Donald
he'll
Trump,
run
the
again
candidate,
as long as
has
he
said in this
physically
election there
can.
will be a bloodbath.
Yep.
If
He's one of
this
those
and
people,
the
he'll be
outcome of
just like this
election
until at
is
least
not
he's
to his
90.
liking, let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
Is that a
was
closing
different
statement?
term, and it was a term that related to
I wish
energy
it was.
because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that
Bloodbath.
story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they
Everyone
will
on
see it was
Fox.
perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the
Oh,
southern border?
dear
How come
God,
she's not
okay.
doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like
So
to
we're
see her
about
go
at the
down
halfway mark
to
of the
Washington,
debate.
D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign
She's
a
been
bill
just
to
awful
close
tonight.
up the
Awful. Have
border.
you seen her?
Because
I've been
they have the
here
right
with
to
her.
do it.
She's
They
been
don't
awful.
need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the
All right.
afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill.
No, he
If
goes to bed
if
at
he
4
signs
o'clock.
a bill that the
Get it right.
border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people,
I wanna-
unlike J6.
we talked immigration here tonight. I do want to
J6.
focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us
J6.
this into focus. Truth. In these
Yeah,
times
he's
that we're
got an
living in.
abbreviation for
Mr.
it.
President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you
Donald
won
Trump
in a
on
landslide.
J6.
In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said,
He
quote,
led
you
the
lost by a
people.
whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in
No, I
2020?
don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at
Huh.
it. And they should
Yeah,
have
he
sent it
recently
back to the
admitted that they
legislatures
lost,
for
but it was just
approval.
a mix.
I got
He
almost
didn't mean to say
75
it.
million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016.
I was told that
you
if I
can't
got a
be
certain
beaten.
number, I would win, and
The
I got that
election,
number, and I
people should
lost.
never
So
be
that
thinking
is
about an
why.
election is
That's
fraudulent.
why I
We need
won.
two things. We need walls.
Because I
we
was
need-
told something.
And we have to have it.
and it
We have to
needed
have
to be true.
borders and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot
He's
of
like a
these
child.
illegal immigrants coming
You said
in, they're
you said
trying
that
to
if
get
I
them
did
to
this
vote. They
thing and
can't
this
even
thing, then
speak
you'd give me
English.
a
They don't even
cookie.
know what
And
country
I
they're in
did those
practically.
things.
And these people are trying to get them to vote.
Where's
and
my
that's why they're
cookie?
allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of
I
many
like these
judges. Many of
these
them
judge
debate
looked
questioners.
at
They're
it
throwing a
and
lot
they
of
said
shade.
we didn't have standing.
I mean, it's good that
That's
they
the
are
other
fact
thing.
checking them. You know,
They
the
said
last
we didn't
debate,
have
there was zero
standing, a
fact checking
technicality.
happening.
Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States
Zero
doesn't
fact
have
checking.
standing. That's how we lost.
Yeah, like when they
If you look at
blatantly
the facts, and
lie
I'd love to
in the
have
last
you do a
election,
special
but
on it.
the
I'll show
moderators
you
just sort of let it go.
Georgia,
At least
and I'll
this
show
time,
you
as
Wisconsin,
Trump
and
is
I'll show you
spitting out
Pennsylvania,
blatant
and I'll
lies,
show
they're like
we
calling
have
him
so
on it.
many facts and statistics.
If I was
You know
Kamala, I
what?
would
That
say
doesn't matter,
simply this.
because we have to solve the problem that we
You
have right now.
basically
That's old
crippled
news.
the Postal
And the problem
Service
that we have right now
and then
is we have
told your
a
voters
nation
that
in decline,
mailing in
and
your
they have put
ballots
it
was
into
not going to
decline.
work.
We have a nation
So
that
you
is
cut
dying,
the
David.
legs off
Mr.
of your
President, thank
own
you.
effort.
Vice President Harris,
Because
you heard the
at that
president here
moment in the
tonight. He
country,
didn't
you
say
needed
that he lost by a
the
whisker.
post
He
office
still,
to work
believes, he
properly.
did not lose the election that was won by
It's
President
You
Trump,
could
and
you could
yourself.
argue
But I do
sometimes
want to
I
ask you about something
feel like
that's come up in the last
because
couple
in
of days.
this
This was a post
election
from
cycle,
President
he's
Trump
told people, I don't
about
need the
this
votes.
upcoming election.
We've got
just
so
weeks
many
away. He
votes,
said,
I don't
"When
need people
win,
to vote.
those
Like,
people who
Right.
cheated," and then he lists donors, voters, election
I'm not
officials.
convinced he
He
really
says, "will be
wants to win. I'm not
prosecuted
convinced
to
he
the
wanted to
fullest
win the
extent
first
of the
time. It's
law,
like maybe
which will
better
include
for him to
long-term
be
prison sentences."
the
One of your campaign
underdog
followers
who has
responded
been,
saying,
you
"We
know,
won't let
wronged,
people
right?
intimidate us.
Like
We
he's more
won't let people
profitable if
control
he's been wronged. He
us."
can
Is that what you
he
believe
can
he's
rile up his base.
Donald Trump
You're
is
not wrong that
very
he'll take
different now.
advantage of it and find every opportunity he can in whatever happens. But I think that he very much wants to be president because he wanted 2 terms, and he thinks that he can pardon himself of all these things that he's currently running against. And besides, it was very lucrative for him to be president. He made a lot of money off of being president.
Right. Yeah. And he will be able to shut down a lot of these cases.
Yeah.
Instruct the Justice Department to drop shit.
Possibly assassinate his political
I have
enemies.
talked with military leaders,
I mean,
some of whom
Supreme
work
Court
with
says
you,
he can do it
and they
now.
say
Exactly.
you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a
Look at that smile.
presidential
It's like the
debate and
Grinch.
what over and
Grinch.
over again are
That's a
court
yeah.
cases you have lost
Donald
because
Grinch
you
Trump.
did
Donald
in fact
Grinch.
lose that election. It leads one to believe that
You're a
perhaps
mean
we do not
one,
have in the
Mr.
candidate
Trump.
to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man.
Yeah.
He's
I like that.
tough
You're a
person.
vile one, Mr. Grinch. You have
Smart.
termites in
Prime
your
Minister
smile.
of
You have
Hungary.
all the tender
They said,
sweetness of a
why is the
seasick
whole world
crocodile.
blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't.
Mr.
Why
Trump.
is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They
Oh
were
my
afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way.
I'm
He
so
said
tired
Russia
of hearing
was
this
afraid
guy
of him.
talk.
I
It's
ended
been
the
like
Nord
8
Stream 2
years of having to
pipeline,
listen to this
and
fuck
Biden put it
talk.
back on day
Oh,
one,
so-
but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban
We blew it up. Don't worry about
said
it.
it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate
Who are we
just a
talking
few
about?
months
Oh,
ago,
Biden.
that if he weren't in
Biden.
that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes.
Wasn't
got
sure if he was
14
talking in
million
the first
votes. What
person
you did,
or the
you
third
talk
person, I
about a
should
threat
say.
to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her.
What?
He got 14 million
What?
votes. They threw him out.
He's
She
gonna
got
say
0
that?
votes. And when she ran,
Let me tell you a little
she was
something.
the
I
first
know
one to
Biden
leave
hates
because
this
she
woman.
failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm
President,
okay with it
Mr.
because
President, your time
I
is up.
think we're gonna
Seething
do
through
very
his
well.
dentures.
Got a
He
lot more to
hates
get.
this
Turning
woman.
now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and
Well, he
hostages
chose her to
will
run as
still
his
be
vice
held,
president twice.
Americans
He
among
hates
them.
this.
Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain.
You got to separate
Just
yourself
last
from
week,
the
Prime
presidency
Minister
in this.
Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the
She
making.
won't.
President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Oh, Nancy Pelosi just texted me.
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October
Go eat
7th,
some ice cream, Nancy.
Hamas
We're
a
going to spread
terrorist
some lies
organization.
here.
slaughtered 1,200 Israelis.
And how many
of them young
Palestinians
people who
have
were simply
Israel
attending a
slaughtered?
concert. Women were horribly raped.
Nancy,
And so
Yeah, we know what
absolutely, I
happened,
said
but
then,
the
I say
counter
now,
response is to
Israel
do it
has a
40
right to
times
defend
over
itself.
that.
We would. And how it does so matters.
no evidence of
because it is
systemic
also
rape
true,
is evidence
far
that
too many
Israel was the one who killed the
innocent
people at the
Palestinians have been
music
killed.
festival.
Shot at them
Children,
from their air
mothers.
helicopter.
What we know is that
Buried all the
this
cars under
war
the ground.
must end. It must end immediately. And the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the
Israeli
clock on
snipers
that.
just killed someone from
Work
our
around the
neighborhood
clock,
here
also
in Seattle.
understanding that we must
And the
chart a
national news
course
media
for a
talks
two-state
about
solution.
her Turkish
And in
ancestry
that
as if she's a
solution,
foreigner.
there must
You know,
be
she went to elementary
security
school a
for the
mile up the
Israeli
road here.
people and
She went
Israel,
to
and in
West
equal
Seattle
measure
High
for the
School.
Palestinians.
She,
But
you
the
know,
one thing I will assure you
21-year-old
always, I will always give
Israeli
Israel the ability to
snipers killed
defend
her.
itself.
Not even my
in
city
particular
fucking
as it
council
relates
members
as it
will
relates to
will
Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can
Sorry to
rebuild
hear that.
Gaza, where
yeah,
the
and I'm just I
Palestinians
can't.
have
This
security,
whole issue. We don't need a two-state
self-determination, and
solution.
the dignity they
We
so
need a
rightly
single
deserve.
secular
President
democratic
Trump, how would
state
you
in historic
negotiate with
Palestine.
Netanyahu
Yep.
and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out
Two-state
and
solution
prevent
is a
the
fucking
killing of more
straw
innocent
man.
civilians
It's
in
a
Gaza?
if I were president, it
undoable
would have
thing
never
to
started.
allow the
If I were
illegal
president,
occupation to
Russia
continue
would have
to
never,
further
ever,
expand
I know
illegal
Putin very well.
occupation.
He would have never. And there was
But
no
like Bill
propaganda,
Maher
by the
says,
way,
like
for
if
4
you're not
years.
going to complain about
They got
everything
into
all at
Ukraine
once, you're
and
not allowed
killed
to complain about
millions
this.
of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over
You just
there. But when she
uh,
mentions about Israel all of a sudden.
anti-Semite if
She
you're going to
hates
bring
Israel.
up
She
the
wouldn't even meet
cruel
with
torture and
Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make
human
a very important
violations that are
speech.
going
She
on by
refused to be
Israel
there 'cause
to
she
other
was at a
Semites.
sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She
Okay.
hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel
Oops, sorry.
will not exist
button.
within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates
She
the
just
Arab
wrapped herself in their
population
flag. I don't know what you're
because
talking about.
the
Right.
whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone.
The
It
biggest
would
problem.
never happen.
Sorry, go ahead.
Iran was
She's
broke
accepted 6
under Donald
times the amount of
Trump.
money from
Now
Israel that
Iran
Trump
has
has.
$300 billion because they
The
took
biggest
off all the
problem
sanctions
that
I had. Iran had no money for
the United States
Hamas or
has in general
Hezbollah or any of the 28
is
different,
arguing what Israel is
spheres
doing
of
when
terror.
it
And
pales
they
in
are
comparison to what
spheres
we
of
did
terror,
to
horrible
Afghanistan
terror. They had no money.
and
It was a
Iraq,
big story,
simply
and you
because
know,
2,000
you
people
covered it very
died.
well, actually. They had no money
Uh,
for terror.
Millions
They
of
were
people
broke. Now they're
died
a
and were
rich nation,
displaced because
and
of
now what
those
they're
2,000
doing is
deaths.
they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and
If recent
fast, and I'll
history
get
is
the
any
war
guide,
with
actually
Ukraine
Israel
and
is on
Russia
its way
ended.
out. There is
If
not
I'm president-elect, I'll
a
get it done
genocidal regime
before
that still
even
exists
becoming
in the
president.
modern
Vice
age.
President Harris,
Like
you
every-
Sure, but there's a lot of suffering on the way out.
That's
Oh yeah,
absolutely not
oh, it's
true.
going to be
I
ugly.
have my
And I
entire
think they'll do
career
everything they
life
can to eradicate the
supported Israel
Palestinians
and the
and push,
Israeli
and
people.
whoever
He
survives,
knows
just push
that
them out into
he's
the
trying to again
desert.
divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on.
Also, you and I understand the effects of climate change and what we're going to be facing. Most of that world will be unlivable in 50 years.
According to
Right.
himself, it is well known that
Yeah,
he
we'll
said
have a
of
billion
Putin
brown
that
refugees up north
he
that
can
that
do
both of
whatever the
these
hell he
parties, all
wants
of
and
these
go into
neoliberal
Ukraine.
corporatists
It is well known
are
that
in
he said
favor of
when
genocide.
Russia went into
That's how they know
Ukraine,
they
it
need to
was
protect the capital.
brilliant.
They're
It is well
all
known he
behind genocide
exchanged
and
love
preparing for
letters
the
with
larger
Kim
genocide
Jong-un,
that the imperial
and it's
machine is going to have to engage in.
absolutely well known
Yep.
that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military
Donald
leaders
Trump's
who
like,
you have
yeah,
worked with
yeah, I like
told me
flattery.
you are a
Drops the
disgrace.
shoulder, nods.
That
Right.
is why we
It must be
understand that
funny
we
to
have have
be,
a
or
president
a
who
very
is
unique
not
perspective to be
consistently
above
weak
all of
and
this,
wrong on
where
national
you
matters,
control
including the importance
much
of
more
upholding
important things in
and
the world and just
respecting
kind of
in
laugh at
highest regard our
what we pay
military.
attention
Vice
to.
President Harris, thank
Right.
you.
These puppets
And
on
she's the
stage.
one
Yep.
that caused it. That's weak on
Look, the
national
American people
security
get to
by
choose
allowing
between the two
every
choices we
nation
made for them.
last month for the year, 168 different countries
He
sending
is
people
really
into our
easy to
country.
bait. Like she
Their
uses
crime
the
rates are
word
way
Donald
down.
Trump is so weak, and
Putin
that's what he
endorsed her
that's what he
last week.
that's what he
Said, "I hope
focuses
she
on.
wins,"
She's the
and I
one
think
who's
he meant
weak.
it, because what he's gotten away with is
Yep.
absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The
You
leaders
call them
of
anything, they go,
other
I'm not that,
countries
you're
think
that, you're
they're
that.
weak and incompetent, and they are.
I'm-
They're grossly incompetent.
I'm not a
And
man,
I
you're a
just ask
man.
one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all
But then
over
he blew
Europe?
it up.
Because they're
Biden
weak
blew up the
and they're
Nord Stream
ineffective.
pipeline.
Yeah, they're
And
not
Biden,
weak. They
by the
blew
way,
it
gets
up.
paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We
Don't
right
call
back
him
with
weak.
much more of this
Just call it
historic ABC News
psychopathic, but I don't know
presidential
about
debate
weak.
from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
All right, let's mute this crap.
Oh, okay. So this is better than the last one for sure, right? I'm not beating my head against the desk. It's still frustrating. Like, this is such a joke, this national theater that we got going on with all this political game. How are you feeling as we pass the halfway mark? I'm going to call this the halftime. Is there going to be 2 commercial breaks like there was last time?
Something like that, I think. Yeah. Well, right now I just have it off our screen in case we have any issues with showing commercials through our platform.
Good call. Good call.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing okay. I mean, I think that it's more of the same. It's probably more of what I expected Biden's debate to go if he had half a brain. But because this is just the only thing that's different is it's the first time maybe in my lifetime that we've gotten this far, and one of them isn't wearing a tie. Like, that's that's got to be one of the only differences between this and the other 15, 20 I've seen so far in my life.
Right.
So
Her suit thing, she does have some little tie-like.
yeah, she's got like a little, I don't know what those are called.
Me either. I wanted it to be red. I was
Almost like
looking
an
at that
ascot.
earlier and wanted it to be red, like his tie is red.
A negligee. No, I don't know what that would be called. Yeah, I'll have to ask my girlfriend.
Yeah, definitely not a negligee. It's
No.
ascot
I stopped myself short. You're the one who had to say it all.
Oh, yeah, no, this is, I guess, more what I would expect out of a presidential debate in this day and age. Well, I don't believe her when she talks about the policies that she wants to put forward. At least she made an effort at the very beginning, the first couple of questions. She made an effort to talk about policies, right? He just spouts his lies about how I was the greatest. I did the most things. We had the best economy. We had the best freedom. We had the best laws. We had the most safety. We had, he spreads his regular bestest, smartest, greatest horseshit. I liked it a little bit more when she was still trying to say policies as opposed to just demonizing Trump, falling on the Democrat talking point of let's make him bad. Trump bad. He's going to give you 2025. Trump is going to, he says she wants to kill born babies. And she says, Trump wants to make sure that I don't know. I don't fuck. Oh.
It's tough to even try to repeat this stuff. It's like, man,
the whole national political.
What do you think they have to do to detox from this? When they're done.
Do they detox from this? I mean, I
don't know. I would think that they'd have to somehow release all this poison.
Right. Well, I bet they drink scotch together in the back room in the green room.
It might be. Yeah,
this will end, and they'll shake hands and have a couple of scotches, and well, he doesn't drink scotch. He'll take an Adderall, maybe snort an Adderall, and she'll drink a scotch, and allegedly.
Yeah. Maybe he'll snort an Addy, and 1 of 10 for so far today. Yeah, there's a lot of allegation that he uses those. So.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine being in those circles. I can't imagine. It would be fascinating to view the phalanx of people who prep her, and the talking points they practice to. If he's going to mention crime, then you got to talk about how he's a criminal, and all the debate prep, because I don't think he does. I mean, the debate prep that she does would be fascinating to watch. I just can't imagine having to live in that neoliberal echo chamber of lies and spewing the talking points given to you by the establishment. It must be terrible.
I think it's one of the things that gives Trump an edge, because most of us, I think, would debate or prep for a debate like this by just remembering key issues and certain talking points, but not then verbatim saying them. Like, I have to memorize this entire script that I have to go out and give. You're not supposed to be an actor. You're supposed to be there honestly and very, a very real, like, this is just what I am, and this is what I think and feel. But they're so uptight about revealing anything that could send something in a weird direction, and all of a sudden they have bad press.
At this point, every national politician is an actor. They are all actors. No one. You're right. He doesn't. He's still an actor, but he writes.
But he's a bad one.
He's a bad one who writes his own script.
And so he goes off script all the time, and people like that because they think somehow that's him being more real and more true. Like, he's telling me truthful things because look, this isn't scripted. It's like, no, I mean, he can still lie every other word out of his mouth, and he just rattles shit off until people accept that that was an answer.
Should we like Mystery Science Theater 3000, the second half of this? I
Yeah.
want everyone to know that I am the devil.
Yeah. I wish they had the ability to put our heads like in silhouette in front of the screen. That'd be a great StreamYard if you're listening. That would be-
Yeah.
Or StreamYard, sorry, StreamYard.
Let us be the silhouettes in front of the things we're commenting on.
Or for the second half, I'll put you on top.
Ooh.
All right, let me
All right. Let's
Where's
hear
the
what
mic?
he's spewing now.
I know Putin very well.
I'm still not hearing it. If there's a
Oh,
you're hearing it.
that's weird. Hold on.
I'm not sure I care.
Oh no,
I should care, right? I
let
should
me
be listening
bring it
to
back
him.
in. It's weird. You're still not hearing it?
No, still got nothing. Let me
All right,
check
hold on.
if it's me.
I don't know. Before I saw a place that I could hit mute, but that doesn't show that now.
This girl is on fire.
I sing that all the time. Jesus put out fire. Yep. You don't hear that.
No, I got nothing.
I'm very sad that I do. Hold on.
Maybe it's a sign. Right. I'm the lucky one. Now that I'm on top, I'm above all the sound.
Right. That's got to be it.
Maybe I can go to the live stream, see if I hear it in the live stream.
No, hold on. I mean, you can test it, but
Well, I think you got it paused now, so I wouldn't hear. I'd just hear.
no, I don't have it paused.
Oh,
It's playing.
was the live stream paused? Oh, the live stream was paused. I had the live stream paused.
Yeah, pause
There
it
we
for a second. Oh, you paused it. This is the smoothest we've ever done on here.
go.
Or I'm going
This
to
is the
stop
best
screen
live
and start
stream.
again.
Those of you watching right now, this is the best live stream. It's the greatest live stream. All the smart people are saying that this is the live stream commentary that we needed.
This is the live stream. Yeah.
We're making live streams great again over here. And I promise that if you continue to watch our live stream, we will reinstate Roe versus Wade. We will okay. Oh.
Oh, I don't know. It's like something changed.
Does that mean we can end?
If you want.
Let's see, what are we? We're like 70 minutes into the 90-minute podcast.
Yeah, but we watch all of these usually.
Yeah.
You really want out, don't you, Mark? You're not even trying to make this work. What am I doing over here?
I want to make it work. It's a lot of pressure having to comment on these assholes.
Oh, no, it's not. We're doing a better job than they are articulating this shit.
So if you're out there watching the live stream, what do you think? Do these people make you feel represented? Are you just burning to vote for one of these ass clowns? Or could you maybe think of anyone better?
Americans
Do you have a
here
pet?
in Pennsylvania, how quickly you would give up
Okay, now
for
I
the
hear.
sake of favor
Yeah, they're back.
and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would
It's a good place to come in.
It was a great place to come in.
Something you said earlier, and now, please.
He's
I'll
known
give
to
you
be a
minute here.
dictator.
Putin would
His
be sitting
dick
in
looks just like a
Moscow,
tater.
and he would have
Right.
lost 300,000 men. And
He
women,
wants to be
but
eaten
he
by
would have
another
been sitting
dictator.
in Moscow, quiet, please. He would have been
Sorry,
sitting
Trump.
in Moscow, much happier than he is right now,
Go ahead,
But
please.
eventually, you know,
I
he's
don't.
got
I
a
don't
thing
think she
that
should have been
other
quiet
people
when he
don't
said,
have. He's
"Quiet,
got nuclear
please."
weapons.
She
They don't ever
said,
talk about that.
"Bite me,
He's got nuclear
asswipe."
weapons.
Yeah.
Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about.
I don't even know
Nobody
who we're
likes to
talking about
talk
now. We're talking
it.
about Russia.
But just so you
I
understand,
think so.
they
Yeah,
sent her
nukes.
to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war.
Remind me to tell you my
They said
belief
was
about
weak
nukes just
and
being
stupid.
it
Should have never
isn't
done it.
actually
She was the
that big of a deal
emissary.
anymore.
They sent her
Just a
in
way to get us all to
negotiate with
comply.
Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later.
Vice
And
President?
that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something.
How can there be
She
a
is a
worst vice
horrible
president? Vice
negotiator.
presidents don't do
They
fucking
sent her
shit.
in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one.
Good.
When I
good.
went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader,
Have you
upholding
met Putin, though?
international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the
Mr.
world
Grinch.
are
In
dependent
her
on our
DNC
ability to look out for
acceptance
our
speech, she
friends
did say
and
that
not
America's going to
favor our
stay the
enemies
course with
because
Ukraine.
you adore
Yeah.
strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The president of the United
If
States
Democrats
is
win, I will
commander-in-chief,
put money on the
and the
fact of
American people
us
have a right
having a
to
draft
rely
before
on a president
to get American
who
boots on the ground in
understands the
Ukraine before
significance
the
of
end of
America's
the
role and
Harris
responsibility in terms of
presidency.
ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up.
I might
for
lose
our
the money, but
principles
I'll
and
put
not
money on it.
sell them for the benefit of personal
Well, I
flattery.
like to root for
We
you,
talked
but I'd
about
be rooting
Ukraine and
against you on
Vladimir
that
Putin.
one.
I do want to
But
talk about
not that I think
Afghanistan.
that
It
you're
came
wrong.
up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did.
Yeah, you know, if you
Countries,
want to move
the
on to
28 countries
Afghanistan,
at the
why do you
time
turn his mic
to
back on?
pay
Why
up.
don't you
He
just
said,
keep
I've
him
never
muted
seen,
and
he's the
talk
head of
over him?
NATO. He said, I've never seen, for years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the
I did an
chaotic withdrawal
amazing
from
job. Could you
Afghanistan.
tell
I
me
do
one
want to ask
thing
the
that
Vice
you
President,
did that you thought was
do
a
you
poor
believe you bear
job?
any
Like what you could have done a
responsibility
better
in
job
the way
on?
that withdrawal played out?
He wouldn't be able
Well,
to
I will
answer
tell you,
that.
I agreed with
I
President
wasn't
Biden's
so good at
decision
failing.
to pull out of
Right.
Afghanistan. 4 presidents
I really failed
said they
at
would,
bringing the
and Joe
country
Biden
together.
did.
I'm really disappointed
And
about
as a
that.
result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that
There's
endless
that
war.
Grinch smile.
And as of today, there
Bullfrog.
is not
Bull-
one
bullfrog
member of
McGrinch.
the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist
How long has
organization
it been
called the
since we
Taliban.
heard a
The negotiation
policy
involved the
that
Taliban
either one
getting
of these fuckheads
5,000
wants to
terrorists,
institute?
Taliban terrorists.
Let me tell you
released.
what I
And
didn't
get
like
this,
about
now
this.
get this. And the president at the
Could you
time
speak about what you want to do?
invited the
Well, let
Taliban
me
to
just
Camp
talk about what this
David,
guy wants to do.
a
Oh my
place
God.
of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive
Have you ever met Vladimir
respected
Putin?
world
I've met
leaders.
Zelensky
And
5 times.
this former president,
Wait, what?
as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the president of
That
the
big
United
pregnant
States
pause where
to
she
be
said, "This
commander-in-chief with a level of respect."
former
And this gets
president
back to the point of how
had
he
to
has
be
consistently disparaged and demeaned
pre-planned, right?
members
Like
of our
that's one of those
military,
things to find
fallen
a place
soldiers,
where it looks like you're
and the work
stopping
that we
yourself and
must do
calling
to
him an asshole.
uphold the strength and the respect of the United States
This
around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Fat
President Trump, your response
piece of
to her
shit.
saying she began the
Yeah,
negotiations
thank
with
you.
the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head
Abdul.
of the Taliban. And I told
I have to
Abdul,
talk
don't
like
do it
this.
anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months,
Oh,
we had
Jesus
nobody
Christ.
killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement.
Oh,
I had a
The
great
reason
agreement
it was
after I
good
threatened this man's
was
life.
we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left
That's the
many
minivan I
Americans
drive my
behind,
children
and we
in.
wouldn't
I
have
don't know
left-
why I have a
we
picture of
wouldn't have
that.
left
You tell me.
$85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move
And
on.
these people did the worst
you're the one who wanted to
withdrawal
come here,
and
dude.
in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia.
It is sort
You're
of
the most
provocative.
embarrassing moment in the
because
history
they
of
saw
our
how
country.
incompetent she.
I want her
and her
scarf to be
boss are.
red.
President
I want her
Trump, thank
scarf
you.
to be red like his tie.
I want to move on now to
Mhm.
race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question.
Like
here
with the
tonight.
last debate, I
Why
have
do
to
you
say the
believe it's
framing a lot of
appropriate
these
to weigh in on the
questions is
racial
clearly
identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is.
from the Democrats'
care.
perspective. Like
Uh,
there's not
you
a
make big
whole
deal out
lot
something.
of.
I couldn't care less.
I'm happy when they're
Whatever
doing
she
the
wants to
fact
be is
checking
okay
and when
with
they're
me.
calling out
But
Trump.
those were your words.
But
So
they're
I'm asking,
very
I
clearly
mean, all I can say
framing
is I read where
is
she
not
was
neutral
not
framing.
black.
No, they
she
never
put
do
out-
that though.
And
I have
I'll say
an
that,
idea as to
and
why, but I'll
then
say in a second.
I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's
Like-
up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of
That's
us
true.
know that we have so
Yes.
much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember,
Oh yeah, the
how Donald
Democrats
Trump
don't divide
started. He
anybody by
was
race.
a land, he owned land, he owned buildings, and
And
he was
landlord, just-
investigated because he refused to rent property to Black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same
And
individual.
honestly, after
who
they were
spread
exonerated, he
birther
still
lies about the
said, "I
first
think they
Black
should have been
president of the
executed."
United
Yeah.
States.
Dude,
Yep.
dude is a
And I think the
blatant
American
racist.
people
Oh yeah.
want better
and-
than that. Want better than this.
Everyone
Want
knows it or
someone who
doesn't care.
understands as I do, I travel our country.
Again, I wonder
We
what the
see in
point
each other
of these
a
attacks are.
friend.
Like you're either
We
singing to the
see in each
choir
other a
or you're
neighbor.
singing to
We
deaf
don't
ears.
want a
and
leader
there's
who is
nothing
constantly
policy
trying
driven
to
about
have
any of this.
Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people
Yeah,
all the
for
time.
I guess
who tell me,
they have a feeling that the
"Can we
people that
please
haven't
just have
decided yet
discourse
don't know
about
who these people
how we're
are.
going to invest in the
Right, never heard
aspirations
of
and
Donald
the
Trump.
ambitions and the
Never heard of
dreams
him.
the American people. knowing
I
that
had no idea
regardless
he did all
of
that
people's
stuff.
color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the
I've
same
been in a
dreams and
coma for
aspirations
15
and
years.
want a
And I
president
guess
who
to be
invests in
fair, like
values,
since I've
not
gotten
in
involved
hate
in
and
politics,
division.
I am fucking
Vice President Harris.
shocked
Thank you. Lindsay.
how
President Trump, this is now your third
disengaged
time.
normies are. Like so
This is
much
the most
of
Oh,
divisive
yeah.
the
presidency
voters out
in the
there
history
really
of our
have not a
country.
fucking
There's never
clue
been
what's
anything
happening.
like it.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
How the
destroying
systems
our
work.
country, and they come up with things.
They know more
like
about TV show
what you just
characters than they
said.
know about
going
the
back
government
many,
and
many
who's
years,
in it.
when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five. They admitted, they said they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is
Well,
a
they're not
person
guilty.
that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and
History
stronger.
of the world.
But they're destroying
History
our
of the world.
economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says.
No, she
is
hasn't.
Biden.
Where
The
has she gotten
worst
away from
inflation
Biden
we've
in this
ever had.
debate?
A horrible
No,
economy
not at
because
all.
inflation has
She's
made
for
it so
fracking.
bad.
She's for Israel continuing to
can't
do
get
what they
away
were
with
doing.
that.
She's for Ukraine continuing to do what they were doing. What?
Briefly.
Huh?
Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am
not?
certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a
Actually, I am
great
Joe Biden, and just zips right out.
one who believes
Ah!
And I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you rotten kids.
about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our
I
plans.
believe in
Talk
what we
about
can.
policy.
And let's compare the plans. I have a
He
plan
doesn't really
Dude.
have a plan.
to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deductions
Deductions.
to pursue their
If
ambitions.
you have the
their
money, I'll
innovation,
give you
their
a tax
ideas,
break.
Their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life
$6,000
to help
wow.
you in that most critical stage of your child's development.
pay rent
I have a
for a
plan
month.
that is about allowing people to be able to pursue
2 months.
what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight.
Now, I
as
admit,
opposed to a
I live in
conversation
a
that
really
is
high
constantly
price
about
market, but
belittling
Yeah, you do.
and
Yeah.
name calling.
$25,000 for your
Let's
down
turn
payment,
the
that's like
page
nothing.
Vice
That's like
President
10% of your
Harris.
down
Right.
Let's turn
payment.
to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump,
Let's turn to policy, please.
To defund the police. She has
Please, please, can we move on?
confiscate
Oh, my
everybody's
God.
gun.
President Trump,
She
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on.
Clearly the
She's a
person in charge of the mics
bootlicking
is not
cop
the
lover. She doesn't want to
Okay,
defund the
that's what her
police.
plan is.
Democrats
Right.
love the
I-
fucking
I
police
think
state.
President
because,
Trump-
no, the
President
former
Trump-
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry.
I
We're
just
gonna
need to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long
No, we're moving on. We're moving on. Come on.
The Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said
There should
quote,
be a
"We're
cymbal
working
player
on
up there
it."
that
So
just starts
tonight,
playing the cymbals
9
really
years
loud
after
so you
you
can't hear
first
anybody
started running,
talking
do you
until they
have a
stop
plan,
talking.
and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was. It's not very good today.
I want the moderators to put their
And what
fingers in
I
and go,
said,
la,
that
la,
if we
la,
come
la,
up with
la, la,
something,
la.
Yeah.
we are working on
No,
it.
we're moving on. We're moving
I
on.
would replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I
Yeah.
save it and make it as
Just
good as
one.
it can be? Never
And
going to be
one
great.
choice.
Or do I let it rot?
Hamburgers or
And I
hot
felt
dogs?
I had an obligation, even though politically it
McDonald's
would have been good to
sprinkled
just
or
let it
glazed?
rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people
best
in this
people.
Who I
administration.
fire all the time.
Even the bad ones, we had some
I
real
fire
bad
the
ones
best
too, and so
people.
do they. They have really
No,
bad ones.
I get the
difference is
best
they don't
people,
get
I
rid of them.
fire
Let me
them.
just
And then I get
explain.
more people and
I
I
had a
fire those
choice to
people
make.
too.
Do I save it and make it as good
Everyone
as it
does a
can
great
be,
job.
or do
That's
I
why
let
they
it
all get
rot?
fired.
And I saved it. I did the right thing, but it's still never
You should
going
say
to be
something like
great,
that.
and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be
I mean, I'll
better
say this
healthcare
for
than
Harris. She
Obamacare,
does have
then
like
I would
3
absolutely do it.
policy
But
positions
until
that she's
then,
mentioned
I'd run
twice
it as
now, and
good as
President
it
Trump
can be
has
run.
none.
So
Oh yeah, no,
just
he
to
doesn't
be
have
clear,
any
you still do not have
policy
a plan.
positions.
I have
I'm going to
concepts
make
I
of
the
have
plans.
the
best of everything.
best
I'm not
ideas.
president
Yeah.
right now. But if we come up with
If
something,
you elect
I
me,
would only
everything's gonna
change it
be
if we
great.
come up with something that's better and less
I don't know why,
expensive.
but it
And
will be
there are
because I've got
concepts
all the
and
best
options
people.
we have to
We're going to
do
have
that,
2
and you'll be
llamas in
hearing
every
about it
pot
in the not too
and a
distant
car
future.
in every
Vice President
bathroom.
Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private
You'll be able
insurance
to
and create a
afford eggs and
government-run
bacon
healthcare
again.
system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a
We'll have
private
the best
insurance
eggs. We're not going to
option.
have chicken
What
eggs,
is your plan
ostrich
today?
eggs. You'll have
Well,
ostrich
first of all, I
eggs in your fridge.
absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point
Americans need
that
health
the
care.
former
And for the
president has
record,
made. I've made very clear
insurance
my
is
position
not
on
health
fracking.
care.
And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where
You didn't
people
like
stand.
that.
When Donald
Nope.
Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the
I would call
Affordable
him a
Care
liar
Act.
all the
60
time, just
times.
constantly.
I was
Just
a senator.
you're a liar.
the
You're
time
lying about everything
when
up
I
here.
will
You got
never
nothing
forget
to
the
say.
early morning
It's just,
hours
oh, this is going to
when
be the
it
best,
was
and
up for a vote
I
in the
did the
United
best, and
States
she's
Senate.
doing the
And
worst.
the late,
That's
great
just all you
John
have to say.
McCain, who
You're
you
a
have
freaking
disparaged
toddler
as being
complaining.
you don't like him, you
and
said
having a
at the
fit.
time because he got caught. He
What
was
kind
in
of gun do you think Kamala has? And what kind of gun does
said,
Tim Walz have?
no, you don't.
They're both
No,
gun
you
owners, she
don't.
said. What is
No,
their
you
gun? What are
don't
their
get rid
guns?
of
I want
the
to know.
Affordable
I want to
Care
know what
Act.
their
You have
guns are.
no plan. And what the
I can
Affordable
believe
Care
Tim
Act
Walz
has
has a
done
gun.
is
A lot of people in
eliminate the
Minnesota have guns.
ability of insurance companies
Right,
to
for
deny
sure.
people with
I can
pre-existing
believe that
conditions.
she's maybe
I
just
don't have
saying
to
that
tell
there are
people
guns
watching
around
tonight,
her
you
all the
remember
time.
what that was like?
I
Remember when an insurance company
mean, she said a
could
gun
deny
owner.
Yeah,
if a
that's true.
child had asthma,
And, you know, I
if
don't
someone was a breast
doubt
cancer
it. I'm just
survivor,
wondering what.
if a grandparent had diabetes. And thankfully,
It's not going to
as
be
I've
an
been vice
AR.
president and we
Maybe
over
like
the
a
last
Glock.
4 years have strengthened the
Yeah.
Affordable Care Act.
One of those little,
We
like,
have allowed for
not
the
to be
first time
sexist,
Medicare to
but just
negotiate
one of
drug
those little cute
prices
purse
on behalf
guns, you know,
of
something
you,
small.
the American people.
Little
Strapped to your
Donald Trump
thigh.
said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate
25 caliber.
drug prices. He never
Yeah.
did. We did.
One of those James
And now we
Bond
have capped
guns,
the
those
cost
like
of
Walter
insulin at
PP.
$35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all
Yeah,
people.
just talk about policy.
understanding
You
that
may not
the
have good
value
ones, but
I
at least you
bring to
have
this
some.
Is that access to health care should be a right and
And
not
as you
just a
finish
privilege of
talking about
those
your
who can
policy, you
afford
say,
it.
I'd
And
like to hear
the
Donald
plan
talk about
has
any
to
policy
be
he has.
to strengthen
Yeah.
the Affordable
Let's hear
Care
about
Act,
your
not
policies.
get rid of it.
We
Vice
got
President
policies
Harris,
for days.
thank
The
you.
best
Where Donald
policies.
Trump stands on
Policies.
that.
I want to move to an issue
You have
that's important for a
She
lot
made a
of
mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only
She
him.
made a
It was
mistake.
all of the Democrats
John
that kept
McCain.
it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she
How long
doesn't
has
want.
John
President
McCain
People are
been gone
paying
now? Like
privately for
maybe
insurance that have worked
6
hard
years?
and made money, and they want to have private. She wants
7
everybody
years?
to be
About
on
right.
government insurance where you wait 6
Let's
months for an
Google while
operation that
Ask
you
Face
need
talks.
immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with
why he
regard to
makes
the
that butthole
environment, you
face.
say that we have to have
2018,
clean air
almost
and
exactly
clean
6
water.
years, August
Vice President
25th,
Harris, you
2018.
call
gonna
climate
guess.
change an
Good on ya.
existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you.
Well,
1
neither
minute
of them
for
will
you
do
each.
anything to fight
Well,
climate
the
change.
former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in
What
a
us
state who has
Democrats know is it's very
experienced
real,
these
and we're not
extreme
going to do
weather
anything to
occurrences,
stop
who
it
now
because
is either being denied
that will
home
hurt
insurance or
profits.
it's being jacked up.
Right. So
You
we're
ask
just
anybody
fomenting a
who
lot
has
of
been,
war and
the
discourse
victim
around the
of
world.
what that means in
Take
terms
care
of
of all those
losing
people that
their
are going to
home,
burn.
having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care
We know we can
deeply
deal
about
with this issue. Israel has
And I am
shown us how to
proud that
deal
as
with this
vice
issue.
president over the
To
last
lock
4
up
years,
all
we
the
have invested
all
$1
the the
trillion
refugees,
in
and
a
then you
clean
bomb the fuck
energy
out of their
economy,
tents.
while we have
Yeah.
also
And just all while
increased
saying, this
domestic
isn't
gas
a genocide.
production
This is not a
to
genocide. What do you
historic
mean it's a
levels.
genocide?
We have
What do you think a
created over
genocide looks like?
800,000 new
That?
manufacturing jobs.
No.
While I
It's
have
not
been
that.
vice
There's more and
president,
more
we have
immigrants. How can it be a
invested in
genocide?
clean energy
We
to
have
the
more
point that
refugees
he's
now than when we
opening
started
up
murdering them.
factories
These people
around the
live
world.
here. They
Donald
just,
Trump
they
said
wanted
he
to
was
live
going to create
here.
manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing
There's
jobs.
terrorists in their
And I'm
neighborhoods.
also proud to have the endorsement of
That
the
no longer
United Auto
exist.
Workers and Sean Fain,
The
who
neighborhoods.
also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes
Like your
growing
Chinese
what we
ties.
can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants,
Bring up the
not
fact that he's
closing them
always
like
made
happened under
things in
Donald
China.
Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico. In many
tell you what I'll
cases
never
owned
say.
by
That
China.
didn't
They're
happen
building these
under Adam
massive
Sunken.
plants, and they
Okay,
can
Adam
bring
Sunken
jobs
didn't
into the United
do
States
that.
because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable, but we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have
I lost what he
nothing
was saying
because
for a second. I thought they're going to
refuse-
kill
You
who?
know, Biden doesn't go after people because
You know,
supposedly
it's just,
China
it's
paid him millions of
fascinating.
dollars.
All
He's
this
afraid to do it.
clown, he
Between
just
him and his
talks
son,
about
they
these
get all
right-wing
this money from
talking points
Ukraine.
about,
They get all
oh,
this
there's
from
all these
different
criminals running
countries, and then
rampant
you
and they're
wonder why
killing and
he's
they're
so
eating the
loyal to
pets
this
and
and that.
they're
Why
breaking
is
into your
he-
businesses
why
and
is he- why did he get
they're
$3.5
raping the
million
women
from the mayor
and
of
burning the
Moscow's
children
wife?
and
Why did he
Uh,
get? Why did she pay him
and the
$3.5
fucking
million?
right-wing wang nuts
This is a
believe this
crooked
shit. Like you hear
administration,
this
and they're
horse shit
selling our
repeated
country down
by
the
the
tubes.
far right
President
and by
Trump,
Trump
thank you.
supporters
Thank you.
just all
We'll be
over
right
the
back with
place.
closing
They're
statements
taking
from
the
both
jobs.
candidates in a historic
And
night,
they're
this
killing.
ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
They go to work, then later they kill us, and then they go back to work.
I like that dude commentator, like that moderator. He's got some grade A serious face. That guy. We'll be right back with closing arguments. And boy, he is. Thanks for watching. We'll be right back. He's got. I like his response face is way better than like the Blue Tucker face from early on. Like it's not. He's got that seriousness about him. All right,
Yeah.
so we're almost done. We've been
Yeah,
through
the second half has gone faster, I feel like. We also haven't been listening to them as much.
talking over them a lot more, making fun of them a lot more. Yeah, that does help the time go by. I was glad Kamala returned to some of her talking points about actual policies and
Yeah.
tried to, for a hot second, stop demonizing. Would have been better if,
Excuse me.
instead of just talking about what a bad guy Trump is, if she would talk about her policies, no matter how weak they are, and then ask about Trump's policies. So how'd you manage this? It just says commercial break. Thanks for watching. Is that you or is that?
No, that's them.
Interesting.
I don't have anything like that.
Wow. Just commercial break.
Yeah, they didn't get anybody to pay for this part. I don't want my ad in this.
Oh my God. That's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, how terrible. No one paid
No,
us to.
no one's watching in the last 25 minutes of this. I'm not paying anything for that ad spot.
Well, so we don't have to minimize it because we can watch their gray screen.
Right.
We
Exactly.
can talk about the quality of the gray. I like how it's darker up in the upper right
Yeah.
corner.
I like that there's a little bit of a highlight, spectral
Right.
highlight in the middle there. Like a Fresnel pointing at a gray wall. Soft
can-
focused Fresnel.
The way the titles zip in and then freeze and oh they got an ad. Oh, it's their own ad.
Oh no, it is the Emmys. Oh, it's just for them. Whatever.
Right. It's ABC.
I'll
It's their
pimp
own
them
ad.
for a second because it's what we're watching now.
And so the last 15 seconds they planned for ABC ads. No one else but them. were
Right.
willing-
Well, we'll just talk about our programming on ABC.
my Hulu. Does ABC own Hulu now?
Well, I think Disney owns ABC. Disney owns
No.
Hulu.
Right.
Disney owns everything.
Right.
They own
There-
Fox now.
Yeah, we're down to like 3 media companies.
Yeah.
I'm probably exaggerating just a touch. Maybe.
The allowance of monopolies and within our system is absolutely insane. Like the amount of monopolies that currently exist. Food
I'd love to
industry,
hear-
healthcare,
I'd love
entertainment.
to hear
anything, man.
how either of these candidates are gonna combat the monopolies, because you're right. Like, we're about to have the largest grocery merger where like 90% of Americans will buy groceries from the same fucking company.
It's really screwed up right now.
Yeah, no, things are bad.
But they spend a lot of time having us getting mad at things that don't really matter. And then we never hear about, oh yeah, everything's corporate captured and we're all getting screwed every single day of our lives. They've poisoned the water, they've poisoned the food, they've poisoned our clothes, they've poisoned everything. They make money off of you from the immediate things you do with them, and then the consequences from doing things with them. They also make money off of that.
All right, you snuck away a little earlier. I'm gonna sneak away now. I'm gonna switch the speakers away from my headset here
All right.
because there's an oven timer going off. And
Oh, I hear that beep.
I don't want shit to burn. So
I
I'll be
wondered
right
if it was here. Yeah, go for it. Last live stream. So I believe he said he was switching his speakers over. I'm going to give my quick and idea that I kind of mull about with is that about nuclear war and how, yeah, it's possible that people will end up in a position where they're going to do something drastic. But if the countries truly have a greater collaboration with each other, the weapons of war that they have today are far more powerful and future scientific, that kind of stuff, things we could never imagine. And there's no way that they're going to tell us about those things. So they're just going to keep us scared with one of the scariest things they ever admitted to, which is, they could blow up the entire planet.
Forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living.
Too.
I believe
Nice.
in what we can do together that is about sustaining
Wanted me to
America's
build, the Big
standing in
Lebowski.
the world and ensuring
Easy,
that we
man.
have the
There's a
respect
beverage
that we
here.
so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world.
Fuck you.
I will be a president that will
Fucking
protect our
corporatist
fundamental rights and
imperialist
freedoms,
bitch.
including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was the DA, I was the Attorney General, the United States Senator, and now Vice President. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them,
are you poor?
Okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans.
How does that tie into the most lethal fighting force
what we can
in
do
the
over
history of the
next
world
10
that you
and
want?
20 years
after the Olympics, I like that we go back to just killing each other.
In you, the
You know,
American
we have to
people.
have a lethal
Vice
fighting
President
force.
Harris, thank you. President Trump.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things.
All right, what are you going to do,
Why
Donald?
hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years.
She's a vice president.
They've had 3.5 years to fix the border.
Do you not understand
They've
how the
had
government
3.5
works,
years to
Sonny?
create jobs.
I
and all
let
the things
Mike
we
Pence
talked
do the
about.
job
Why
every day. I
hasn't
was
she done it?
golfing.
She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol,
The
get everyone
beautiful White
together and do
House.
the things you want to do, but you haven't done it.
Place
and you
that he
won't
and his
do it
wife thought was a
because you
dump.
believe in things that the American
Jesus
people
Christ,
don't
this guy's
believe in.
such a cockhole.
You believe in things like We're not going to frack.
So
We're
she's
not
the
going to take
bitch and he's a
fossil fuel. We're
cockhole.
not going to
That's
do
great.
Oh,
things that are going to make this country strong,
I shouldn't
whether
call
you like
names.
it
I'm
or not.
sorry.
Germany tried that, and
Aw,
within 1
that was
year, they
sincere.
were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question.
This guy is kind of
Why
ageless. It's
didn't
like he
she
hit a
do
certain
it?
age and
We're
then
a
he's just
failing
stayed the
nation.
same for like.
Jesus
nation
Christ. Yeah,
that
he is
in
just, he's
serious
like the
decline.
undead. He's an
We're being
undead
laughed at
fucking
all over the
monster. I
world.
just,
All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me.
the name
We're
calling is
laughed
not
at
going to
all
look
over the
good if I
world. They
decide
don't
to run for
understand what
office
happened
someday.
to us as a
We'll
nation.
have to-
But
Well,
bottom
as long as you
line,
never try to
we
run
don't
as a
have any
Republican.
idea what's going on. We
Not a
have
Trump
wars
supporter,
going
that's for
on
sure.
in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to war like
Oh
no
my
other
God.
because of nuclear
This
weapons,
dude
the
also
power
has
of
a
weaponry. I rebuilt our
theoretically
entire
punchable face. I just
military.
want the Secret
She
Service.
gave
So
a
I would
lot
never
of it
actually
away.
try to punch the face
He gave
of
it to
either of these
Afghanistan.
politicians.
What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're
Be a
destroying
big
our
target.
country. The worst president,
No,
the worst
no
vice
comment on what
president
actually happened
in
to
the
him at that
history of our
rally, by the
country.
way.
President
Right.
Trump, thank you. And
Don't
that is our ABC News
mix my
presidential, the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David.
That's
Muir.
really how they're
Thank you for
gonna end
watching
it.
here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
David has the best serious face. Oh my God.
And we are here live on ABC
Commentary
for our
really quick.
post-debate comments. I'm Martha Raddatz. It was a
See if they'll
lively debate from
say
the
it.
economy to abortion to Afghanistan. They had it all, and it was historic. John Carl.
They had it all, Mark.
Wow.
They did.
Wow.
Huh?
Wow.
Wow.
That was quite
Wow.
a debate. And
Wow.
I'm Jonathan Carl here with, of course, Mary Bruce and Rachel Scott.
I feel like I'm
Our
watching a South
reporters
Park episode.
across the news division have been updating our live blog, looking at some of the allegations made back and forth, doing fact checks. You can find all of that on abcnews.com. But I would like to replay the
Those are
moment
fact-checking
at
laptops.
the
You
very
can see it.
start of this debate, because it was quite a moment.
What was that?
The handshake.
Oh,
And if you
Kamala
look,
Harris.
oh.
Good debate. Thank you.
I mean,
Welcome
quite a
to you,
moment.
Bill.
First of all, because we hadn't seen a handshake.
Have
We haven't seen a
fun.
handshake in a
And she
long time.
initiated that one.
And
Yeah, she
not, I mean,
did.
not only did she
immediately.
initiate it, she walked over to him and sought him out, put hands out, and also made the first words.
And probably
It
had
was
plan
it
if
was
he
a
hadn't
strong move,
Yeah.
put his
frankly.
hand out either.
Interesting. So Mark, the bottom line, what did you think?
I think clearly what Kamala Harris wanted to do was be the candidate of hope, the candidate of the future.
Wow.
Donald Trump seemed angry within 4 minutes. I think we saw him going from very serious at the beginning, never really seemed to look at her.
Is she in Congress?
to
She looks
just
old enough to be
angry. I
in
mean,
Congress.
really yelling at some points, trying to make his points. I don't think we heard a lot of policy and plans.
She's
on
been at
either side
ABC,
of
I think, that long.
despite those questions.
I
over and
almost, I'm
over
starting to
again.
look old
But
enough to
what
be
you
in
had
Congress.
was that uptick. You had Kamala Harris looking
Sad.
over, baiting him
He's still a good
again
courage.
and again and again. The microphones were muted when they weren't speaking, but many times she didn't need.
I look a lot
microphone.
older
You
than
watched
my
Donald
age. I'm
Trump
one of those
get
guys
mad,
who,
at
like
scowls
25
through
years from
things.
now, I'm going to be
And,
working with people that'll be
John,
like,
we were all talking leading
Mark
up
has
to
looked
this about
ancient
how this would go, what
forever.
Donald
How-
Trump we would see. I think
Yeah, but if
he
you
had
don't
a
change
plan
from here on out, look at
talking
Trump.
about
You
what
can like
he
hit a,
saw
you can
as
plateau,
the
and
next,
then
as the next term, but then he was talking
I'm
about
95. You look
rumors
75.
about people eating their neighbors'
Yeah.
pets. So
I
it
mean,
really devolved into that.
I mean,
as well.
look, Kamala Harris didn't really explain some of the big questions that were out there about
So are the
why
fact
she
that they're
changed her policy
laptops
views on
the
so many
most
things.
bizarre
Part of the reason is
laptops I've
Donald
ever
Trump really
fucking
was not
seen?
effective in
Is that just like
bringing
a
the
blue
debate to
sticker they
her.
put
I
on the back of the
agree with you. I
laptops
think
to
that
make
he
sure
Yeah,
there's
or
no
maybe
branding?
it's
not
a
just
sleeve
angry,
of some
but
kind.
also
Yeah.
rattled. And in
And
contrast,
is it blue because they're all in
Harris,
favor
who,
of the
again, much of
Democrats?
the world doesn't know. Harris looked like she belonged on the stage, looked like she
Yeah, the ABC colors are
is
black.
somebody
So.
that could serve as president.
And that is certainly how the campaign is feeling tonight. I can tell you the Harris campaign feels very good. They feel they had a very strong night, that she was in command, that she did look presidential, and that she was able, they feel, to hold Donald Trump accountable for his actions. And of course, that was their goal going into this, that she would be able to put Donald
outside the
abortion,
box.
where she was able really to blame Donald Trump directly to his face. I mean, she said, what you are putting women through is unconscionable. Yes, she goaded him. Many got him off message, but she also talked directly to voters, even inviting them to a Trump rally to underscore that central argument in her campaign that she says he's only out for himself, that she argues she's out for the American people.
Rachel?
And now,
Yeah,
if we
well,
clicked
look,
over to
Trump's
Fox, it
campaign
would
is
be
gonna
the exact
seizing on the
opposite.
fact that Vice President Kamala Harris did not do a great job today.
And
really
sadly, they get
explaining
more
her
viewers than
policy
ABC.
shifts, right? And that is what they have been seizing on. They're really trying to define her for voters when voters have a lot of questions about her policy positions. At the same time, though, almost every single thing that Vice President Kamala Harris said tonight got under Trump's skin. And that is exactly what his allies and his advisors did not want to see. I could tell you, I do not think that part of Donald Trump's debate prep was people eating dogs in Springfield or comparing rally sizes. They wanted him to stay focused on
It was a
issues,
bizarre
especially the
fucking
ones that he has
statement,
an edge
right?
on
It
Harris,
was.
economy and immigration.
I mean,
They're eating
you
dogs and
Donald
kitty
Trump's
cats
skin,
and-
you question the people at his rallies, and that was something else. Martha, you have.
I have with us right now Governor Tim Walz.
So I'll tell
of
you,
course, the
if they're
Democratic
coming
vice
from Mexico,
presidential
there's lots of
candidate.
stray dogs down there.
Welcome,
If they
Governor
loved
Walz.
them
How
to
are you
eat them so
feeling?
much,
What's
there
your
wouldn't be
reaction
so
to
many
the debate
strays.
tonight?
Martha,
Plenty of
I'm
meat
feeling
laying
great
around.
because what I knew, and I think so many knew, and now many Americans know, is you saw a president for all America in Kamala Harris. You saw the confidence, you saw the vision.
Very
you
few
saw the
cultures want to
poise,
eat
and you
dogs.
saw the compassion for people.
This dude
understanding
also
she
looks
spoke about
old.
an economy
Like,
that moves us
and he's
forward,
not. He's the
moves
same age as
all of us
Kamala,
forward,
essentially,
lets
right?
everybody be a part of it.
But he's
And
like
she
1 year
continued
older,
to
but
lay
he
that
looks
out,
way
whether
older.
it's reproductive freedom or how we
Yeah.
start small businesses.
He's
or
like
making
me.
home
Looks old
ownership
for his
easier.
age.
And on
Yeah,
the
he's
other
60
side,
years old.
you saw a nearly
She's
It's all the white.
59.
Donald Trump, angry,
60, it says. Yeah.
unhinged, and as you
Yeah, she's 59.
talking
Oh,
about
she's
Kamala
okay.
things that are
Okay.
deeply concerning because they make no
Yeah, she's
impact on
aged
the
quite a
American
bit since she
public.
first
He
came on
shouldn't
the
be anywhere
scene,
near the
but she
White
still
House.
looks
And I
pretty
have to
good
tell
for her
you,
age.
if it weren't so dangerous, it reminds you of an old man yelling at the clouds. That was his thing. Get off my yard. That's what he did all night. Contrast that with the voice of Harris laying out the conclusion for everything that matters.
Uh-oh, his audio guy's a
I
Trump
think
supporter.
the whole country can see what happened tonight. We'll keep pushing forward. That's the way that the country wants to see our politics be. She laid it out clearly. Donald Trump brought nothing tonight. Anger, resentment.
Governor Walz, I do want to ask you. She did not.
He's got that
answer
face
questions on
practice in the mirror.
abortion restriction. She never really answered that question.
Oh,
Can you
wait,
clear
no,
that
it's a
up,
serious question. Let me not
where
smile.
the Harris Walz ticket stands on that?
Certainly, you couldn't get any different than this. The reinstitution of Roe versus Wade, what was the law?
This
of
is what
Roe
using the internet brings you.
for 30,
Instead of a clean
52
satellite
years,
feed
you
because
saw
somebody
this
came out with a
internet
truck
and
to
him
his house so
pushing
that
back
they
to
could
the
do
state.
this or
She's
wherever he is.
exactly right. It's people like a man in
Instead,
Texas
they're
observing
going
himself on
through
stage
the
in
internet like we
Chicago,
are.
nearly bleeding out, having sepsis twice because she can't get the care. She's been absolutely clear on this. Everything Donald Trump said, that is untrue. Have the protections in place where women make their own decisions with their healthcare providers, not Donald Trump.
Okay, thanks so very much for joining
Democrats
us.
really trying to make
And we
this
have the
election
other
about
side of the table,
abortion
Senator
again.
J.D. Vance,
Oh, sure.
Donald Trump's running mate, joining us now. Senator Vance, thank you for joining us.
Can't blame him too much.
Thanks,
That's
Sean.
like one of
Appreciate
the
it.
only things they win on.
So I want to get to one part in the debate where you came up. Donald Trump was asked if he would veto.
This guy looks like a
national
garden gnome
abortion
shaved
ban.
his beard.
He didn't answer the question. Suggested, I guess that he.
Hey,
would.
man, he just got
And
off
it
the
was
couch.
Pointed out that you, in fact, said not that long ago that he would veto a national abortion ban. Can you explain the mix-up here?
Well, I think the president's been very clear that he doesn't want a national abortion ban. I think in some ways he finds the question a little bit ridiculous because why are we asking him about legislation that's never going to actually happen and why he would veto it or not veto it when he says very explicitly that he doesn't support a national abortion ban and he wants
Just
these
like when they were
policies to be made
asking
by the
these
states.
people
But I think
when
there's a
Trump ran
deeper
the
and more
first
important
time,
issue
will
here in this
you
debate, which is that you had
repeal
Kamala
Roe v.
Harris
Wade?
effectively
Well, what do you mean? It's
echoing
not up for debate.
platitude
We're
after
not going to
platitude
do
after
that. We don't.
platitude The American people
This guy
can't pay their
has the
grocery bills
thinnest
on
razor
platitudes.
sort
They
of
can't,
nose. What's going
put their
on with
kids
that
in a
guy's
house on
nose? Is that
platitudes. And
natural,
Kamala
you
Harris had
think?
a lot to say,
Not
but
sure.
very little actual substance behind it for how she's
Interesting
going to lower grocery
observation.
prices, secure the border, and make housing more affordable in this country. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She can't run on a record. And she
These are the
apparently
things that
can't
I
run
think
on
are
much of her
important.
plans either,
Donald
because
Trump's
it's just
big
a lot of
baggy
slogans
eyes.
and not a whole lot of
JD
substance.
Vance's razor
But
nose.
Senator Vance, why
Yeah,
won't he
that
just
appears
say
to be a little
we don't
crooked,
have
like somebody's
national
punched him in
abortion
the
ban? And by the
face.
way, had
Well,
you spoken
he
to him
probably
about it
deserved it.
before you weren't put in a position to answer
This
that
guy
question?
does look like a South Park character too. He does
No, I
not
hadn't
have
spoken to
anywhere
him
near
because,
the
Yeah.
good
again, Donald
serious
Trump thinks the
face.
question is
Yeah.
absurd
All
because
of
he
this
doesn't
just does
support
feel
a
like the
national
South Park
abortion ban,
episode.
and he's been explicit about it. And John, I think that it's so preposterous for the media to focus so much on an issue where Donald Trump has been crystal clear and not on the fact that people can't
Yeah,
afford
if there's anything
groceries
Donald
and
Trump is,
housing
he's
because of
crystal
Kamala Harris's
clear.
policies. This election is actually quite simple, and Kamala Harris and apparently the media would like to distract Americans on issues, by the way, that Donald Trump's been crystal clear about, but
Oh,
they're not talking
What
nearly
are
crystal
enough.
clear
those?
This
again.
debate didn't talk nearly
Right.
enough about the fact that Americans are struggling because they can't afford groceries, they can't afford housing.
We're
and a
no,
lot
we're
of their
nobody
kids
in the
are
grand
dying of
scheme of
fentanyl
things, but I
overdoses
still
because
think that
Kamala
people
Harris has let
like
the
us should be
Mexican
able
drug
to ask
cartels
follow-up
take over the
questions
southern
to these
border.
people.
This is a disgrace
Right.
what's going on in our country, John, and we could do so much better if we just had better leadership. We've got the best workers, the most beautiful country,
Oh
the best
God,
natural
that speech.
resources, but Kamala Harris's leadership is
We got the
squandering
best
the great
land.
benefits of this
We
country.
got
That's
the
why we've got
best
to get back
bitches.
to
Senator,
Donald Trump's leadership.
We stole
Senator,
the
by
best
the way, I
land
asked
in the
because he
world.
hadn't been crystal clear.
Yeah.
He said something different than what you said.
We haven't ruined
That's
all
why
of
I'm
it yet.
seeking clarification. But let me ask you about this for just very
Elect
quickly.
us, and we
I'd
can.
heard Donald
Yeah.
Trump before this debate
Plenty of mountains
describe
to
Kamala
still
Harris
take the
as,
tops
to
off
name a
of.
few of them, a low IQ individual, somebody who doesn't have the mental capacity to be president, really dumb, unable to put two sentences together. Is that what you saw on the stage tonight?
John, what I saw was a lot of
What kind of
slogans. I
question
think
is
the
that?
American people are smart, and Kamala Harris talks to them like they're children. She repeats these ridiculous platitudes where if you actually think about what she said,
She
you
talks to us
realize
like
it doesn't make any
we're
sense.
children,
She
and
talks a lot
Donald
about her
Trump talks like
plans,
he's a
but then the
child.
plans, when you analyze the
She's the one who
substance, don't make
repeats
any sense. And
ridiculous
more importantly,
platitudes.
John,
I
the
mean,
American
Right.
people don't get fed on plans. She has been the vice president for 3.5 years. What she can't do,
Everybody knows the vice
refuses to do, and
presidency
has
is
no
very
ability to do,
powerful.
is to
She had a
say,
lot of
I
things she could have done
accomplished
by
lower
now.
prices because she didn't, or I accomplished lower housing prices because she didn't, or I secured the southern border because she didn't do that. She has
All right.
failed as vice president.
Like
and the
helping
fundamental
break
question is,
ties in
do we want to
Congress.
give her a promotion? I think the answer has to be no, John.
All right, Senator Vance, thank you for joining us, Mary.
One
she
thing both sides can
has
agree on, this was
had
a
to break a
consequential
lot of
night
ties
this
in
race. More
Congress. She
reaction
has
from
made a
Steve on
lot
that.
of
Stay with
votes
us.
as president of the Senate. More than I don't. She might have been one of the most active vice presidents, and the only job a vice president has, being the president of the Senate. Okay, well,
All right, let me click out of this.
that was far less painful than the first presidential debate. It was not good, and there was not much of substance offered. But if we have to go by substance, Kamala clearly won. She had some policy that she was willing to talk about. She did call Trump out directly as a liar several times. She clearly scored points on Trump, and he scored some on her as well. But I'd have to say Kamala won that debate pretty solidly, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think she did okay. I think the last debate I was much more sure of kind of what I believed people's reactions would be. And I was still a little shocked I was as right as I was. I was like, oh wait, people really are going to feel the way that I thought they should feel from watching this debate. But I think with Kamala, I'm a little disappointed. I mean, you know how I feel about these people. If there's any of these two I'm going to even consider voting for, it's going to be her. I'm never going to vote for him.
Right.
So that's just the way my politics are. It has nothing to do with being a Democrat or a Republican. It has everything to do with being decent and respectable, and someone I feel should be a leader of the country that I live in. I don't know if I feel that way about her overall, but I know I don't feel that way about him. When it comes to how scripted she maintained herself the entire time, I guess I could give her some credit for making it all the way through that way. But I was kind of like loosen up, and then at some point start to shoot from the hip a little bit more and get a little more comfortable of just saying things off the cuff and accusing him more directly of explaining himself, not so much this is what he did and this is what he's going to do and this is what I read about. Just ask him point blank, like, what did you mean by that? Well, what do you mean by policy? Or how are you not just up here lying every word out of your mouth? You don't even know what you're talking about. So is that why you lie? Because you just make stuff up to try to keep the conversation going? You just talk until people get so confused you feel like you can stop, and they'll just go, yeah, I guess that was an answer. That's his MO. So I think she did a good job of getting him to be his loud, boisterous self. But like you said many times during the debate, are they swaying anyone's opinions in either direction they weren't already going in? And it doesn't feel like either of them probably did much to answer how they're going to pull in the rest of the people that haven't made up their mind about Donald Trump and her. Because I think those voters are always, oh, they're undecideds, and then somehow we equate that to they don't know who these people are. But I think it's more that they just don't think either one is a good choice. So what do? If they're going to go to the polls and make a choice, it's a better chance that they're going to go for a third party candidate at this time.
Yeah, I don't think any
the
hearts
guns
or
of the
minds-
Biden administration is not going to make that change. So okay, sorry.
No, I don't think any hearts or minds were won. I think you're right. I think that is where the undecided voters are. It's like, what do I do with this mess? I agree. She would have been a little better off if she'd spent less time trying to attack and demonize Trump and more time talking about her policies, and then calling him out more as being, your line and what are your plans? You keep saying vague things. We're going to have the bestest, greatest, wonderfulest, whatever. But how, Donald? How are you going to do that?
How did you do it? Because you can say, well, we used to have this because of me. Well, explain that. How did you get the economy working the way they did? How were you involved in these outcomes?
It's pretty pathetic that the right wing response to all this is, well, why hasn't she fixed it? She's been in the vice presidency for 3.5 years. Why hasn't she fixed these problems that she says she's going to do? Because in what world do you think the vice president has power to do anything other than break ties in the Senate and watch TV?
I don't remember the last time we held the vice president to account on anything that the administration does.
They're not supposed to do anything. They're a backup president. That's the deal.
They're just there in case something bad goes down. That's it.
So, but I think overall she won. I think overall, if you're an undecided voter out there, vote third party. Don't vote for these ass clowns. Both of these imperialist schmucks. They don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about war porn working people. They don't give a shit about making life better for the average voter. They care about increasing profit, increasing the police state, increasing the war machine. That's all they care about. And all this other political theater is just held up in front of you by the billionaire oligarchs to try to keep you distracted from the fact that this is their game, and no matter how you vote, they fucking win. So don't vote in this charade. Go ahead and vote third party, vote independent, do a thing that might have a chance of starting to build something different than this horrendous horse race that we have to suffer through every 4 years, that is doing nothing more than exacerbating the worst things in the world and causing more and more people to suffer and die every year. That's my call to action this time. Don't vote for these ass clowns.
Fair enough. Can't argue with that.
All right. 2 hours, 2 long hours, not as long as last time. For those of you who joined us on the live stream, thank you very much. for those of you who are going to pick this up as this week's podcast, I'm so sorry that this is the podcast that I'm going to
Well,
drop.
just like our last debate, we probably won't drop this one. This can be for Patreon members. I don't need to leave it up live after this, so we could always just take it down. But
All right.
those of you who got to watch while we were doing it, it's fun. It's fun to live stream, and hopefully one day we'll have people participate in the comments.
Yeah, probably is better not to have this be an actual podcast episode. Good call. All right.
Yeah, unless you don't have anything for this week.
Well, I don't.
give this one up.
We've got one in the can where we talked with Fig. And,
yeah, so we're good there. Yeah.
I don't have a guest yet this week, but I bet you and I talking could come up with something better than this, frankly.
Yes.
So
agreed.
All right. Well, thank you, Adam, for suffering through yet another presidential debate with me. Thank you out there in live stream world for suffering through a presidential debate at all. It gets better.
It doesn't. It hasn't.
It hasn't. It will get better if you'll fucking get off your asses and organize.
Exactly.
Fucking piece of shit.
That's the fun part about the live streams. We're more raw.
All right. Thank y'all for joining us tonight on a special Harris Trump edition of Rise Up with Mark.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Right. We'll see you next time.
Some answers, a little bit of truth. Some answers, a little bit of truth.